In Matthew 16, Jesus chastised the Pharisees who could interpret the appearance of the sky but failed to interpret the signs of the time in which they lived. Who are the Pharisees of our day?
This strong hold of sort of whiteness and white identity and pristineness is really part of what keeps us from making progress.
We need to do better. The church, rich in theological scholarship, has lingered in academic sanctuaries and ivory towers, failing to translate its lofty doctrines into a tangible and practical cultural apologetic. At the Worldview Youth Academy, we bridge this critical gap. Here, theological depth is not an end in itself, but a means to engage with contemporary cultural issues for the glory of God and the expansion of His kingdom. Our mission is to cultivate thinkers who can articulate and apply Christian truths within contemporary societal challenges. So embrace this call to worship God with all your heart, all your soul, and with all your mind. We will do better as this next generation tears down the idols of our modern culture and works to build a brighter future toward Christendom 2.0.
Non-rockaboutists must stop. I don't want to rock the boat. I want to sink it.
Are you going to bark all day, little doggy, or are you going to bite?
Brett,
delusional. I love you, Jeff.
Delusional, yeah. Delusional's okay in your worldview. I'm an animal. You don't chastise chickens for being delusional. You don't chastise pigs for being delusional. So you calling me delusional using your worldview is perfectly okay. It doesn't really hurt. She hung up on me.
What?
Desperate times call for faithful men and not for careful men. The careful men come later and write the biographies of the faithful men, lauding them for their courage.
Go into all the world and make disciples. Not go into the world and make buddies. Not to make brosives.
Right.
Don't go into the world and make homies.
Right.
Disciples.
I got a bit of a jiggle neck. That's a joke, Pastor.
When we have the real message of truth, we cannot let somebody say they're speaking truth when they're not.
Take an amazing journey to a place that will blow your mind and move your heart so you will never be the same again.
Now therefore, O kings, be wise. Be warned, O rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. For his wrath is kindled quickly. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. That's one of my favorite verses. Psalm 2, 10 through 12. And of course, my favorite version of that verse is the Ben Merkel.
Kiss the sun or you get smoked, right?
Kiss the sun lest you get smoked. I love that.
I mean, that's not far off the original Hebrew, I will say.
It's more, I think it really brings that verse together.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Apologia Radio. Luke the Bear hosting this week. We were off last week as Pastor Jeff and I were in Louisiana having a pastor's meeting there at Brian Gunter's church, which went really well. Trying to continue our work there for End Abortion Now. Speaking of Pastor Jeff, he is in South Carolina right now, I believe, or on his way for another pastor's meeting in South Carolina with our good friend Matt Brock. So be praying for that. And I got to my left here, Little Caesars.
That's me.
We got a lot going on right now.
Yeah, there's some activity, of course, in our own state, with our own local fight here, and then abroad in different states, new states even, bringing them into this fight and teaching and discipling the church and preaching God's counsel on this issue.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
we besides the election and all these ballot initiatives and all that stuff, we we just officially have 2 more states that we're going to be putting bills in this year. I don't even know. What's that put us up to? 20-ish?
Yeah.
So North Dakota and Illinois. Come on, feel the Illinois. Yes, that's huge. That's a liberal state, at least as far as the governmental
That's what I heard.
Yeah. So I think the only other like really Democratic state we've tried has been Colorado. So that's good.
Which wasn't always historically that way.
Right.
That's more of a recent thing.
Right, exactly. So we got those, and we just heard from our guests, who I'll bring on in a minute, possibly 2 more states we've been trying hard on. So that would put us up about 22, I think. So almost halfway there.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
So before we get into the conversation, I would like to thank our partners. One of them being Ion Layer, which Zach and I both completely forgot to wear our patches today, even though I had it laid out. So
next week, Ion it.
We won't be here next week.
The week after that, Ion it.
Hopefully, Jeff's doing a show next week. We won't be here because we're going to be on our way to North Dakota. We're one of our bills. We have pastors meeting in North Dakota. Zach has shared the link for that if you are in North Dakota or South Dakota or anywhere that's close to there, which I don't know if there's much close to there. We'll be in Bismarck. So that'll be next Friday. Like I said, Zach shared the link on the X's.
Yep, on our End Abortion Now X page.
So if you got any questions, we'd love to see you there, or if you're able to join us. But yeah, so, and then we have, Jeff's got a thing coming up here with our guest, Bradley Pierce, again, who I'll bring on in a second. And what else we got? We'll be going back to Germany here shortly as well to continue our in Abortion Now work.
Ohio, Kentucky are in the mix a little bit too. I know Ohio guys got a bill. They've been working really hard to get in there.
Yeah, so. a lot going on. So back to Ion Layer. I got distracted. We love Ion Layer and NAD. We've all benefited greatly physically from their product, and we're glad to partner with them. You can go to ionlayer.com and put Apologia in the coupon code to get a sweet discount. It's like Oprah today. We're throwing out discounts left and right. We'll get to that.
You get a car, and you get a car, and
you get a discount.
Yeah, you get a discount.
So I'd also like to thank
this one.
like to thank Heritage Defense, heritagedefense.org. And actually, I'm going to since Brad is our guest today, I'm going to let him tell you about Heritage Defense and the sweet discount you can get with Heritage Defense. Bradley, what's up, brother? Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be with y'all.
We love Brad. He's one of our favorite people in the world. I mean that, and he's
I totally agree.
A really awesome Texan, and he has 35.3 children.
He's got a lot of babies.
He's got a lot of babies. A lot of babies. What's up, brother?
We're doing great. All 37.3 of us are doing great.
So, tell us about Heritage Defense. Why should people have that service?
Yeah, so Heritage Defense, Christian homeschooling families, or even if you're not homeschooling, if your children just are not school age yet, parental rights are a big issue. The government doesn't like the way that a lot of Christians are raising their children in the fear and nurture of the Lord. And so we started this organization in 2010 to provide a defense for Christian homeschooling families and families with young children, to have someone that they can call 24/7, get connected with an attorney, to have someone there to defend your parental rights, deal with any kind of false allegations of abuse or neglect or anything overblown, and just so you're not alone. That way you have an advocate, you have an attorney, and you can call us 24/7. It's included with your membership, and we hire an attorney for you in your area, and all that's included as part of the membership with Heritage Defense.
Yes, highly recommend it. And I don't know if you know who Mike Glover is, either of you. He's a ex-Ranger, I think. He has a popular podcast called Fieldcraft Survival, a bunch of stuff. Anyways, not a Christian, but I think he would say is, but he had a situation just this last year where, DCS was called. I think he's up in Idaho, I believe. Just crazy situation where he ended up in jail for a while and never should have happened. The kids were just crazy, and I'm like, man, wow. If he had Heritage Defense, that wouldn't have happened. I don't have time to get into the details. It was a crazy story, but I was like, man, that's crazy. So yes, if you're homeschooling, please go to heritagefence.org. Sign up before the show's over. You have an hour to do so. Bradley, what else do you have going on right now? We're going to get into the Trump-Harris debate, and especially on the abortion topic. But Brad's got a couple things coming up that are pretty exciting. So tell us about those.
Yeah, so actually both of these involve Jeff. First one I'll talk about is our new docu-series that we produced with our friends at Rescue Those, called Abortion Free. And that just kind of, it's 6 episodes, about 30 minutes each, that follows Megan as she discovers what's going on with abortion after Dobbs overturned Roe. And she finds out that's not what most people are told and not what most people think is what's going on. So Jeff's one of the folks on there as well. And I highly recommend people check it out, abortionfree.com, or you can go to our YouTube page, Foundation to Abolish Abortion, and watch that.
Yeah, actually, so that's a good. I'll play the trailer here real quick. I have it pulled up. Yeah, it's on YouTube, and I actually link the trailer in the description if you guys want to check that out. But I'll go ahead and, Gabe, if you want to pull it up, I'll go ahead and play that real quick.
Roe v. Wade has been overturned.
In 11 states, abortion is effectively banned.
My name is Megan. Now that I'm pregnant with my first baby, I care more about protecting life than ever. I keep seeing pro-life headlines say some states are abortion-free, including mine. But are they? I want to find out what's really going on.
We don't see any abortions being reported to the Department of Health.
Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, and Oklahoma are seeing the biggest increases in requests for abortion pills.
So since Roe versus Wade has been overturned, is abortion illegal in South Carolina?
I think so, yes.
Abortion illegal in Oklahoma, yes.
Is abortion illegal in Texas? Yes.
No, it's not illegal.
On Mayday.health, we tell you how people are still getting pills by mail.
So I got both abortion pills that I ordered in the mail.
Now the whole culture is the abortion clinic.
If what we've been doing isn't working, what should we do?
Abolitionism versus being pro-life. Those are two different things.
The biggest distinction between the pro-life movement and the abolitionist movement is we engage biblically.
We're just asking for the law that we have to be applied consistently for every image bearer of God.
The goal is that everyone gets equal justice under law.
Why can't we just make laws protecting unborn babies the same as born babies?
We had a Bill of Equal Protection put in. It was actively opposed, publicly and behind closed doors, by the leader of the pro-life establishment.
Kentucky Right to Life opposing a new bill that would criminalize abortion.
Why would pro-life leaders oppose that?
For the record, Susan Klein representing Missouri Right to Life in opposition to the prosecution of women.
Can't we all agree that we are not going to put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion?
We do not support penalizing them for getting the abortion.
Every single bill that they write in there, this doesn't apply to the mother.
Women are victims of abortion, whether they claim that for themselves or not.
There's a huge just infantilizing of women. Women are not victims of abortion.
No, you murdered them.
Yeah, I did, and I'll do it.
I know you will.
Women are choosing abortion.
My abortion was the best decision I ever made. It was an act of self-love.
They have no problem understanding that they are murdering a child. Many of them celebrate that fact.
She has murder on her mind as she twerks in front of Planned Parenthood.
The crazy reality is, in these states that say they're abortion-free now, abortion has never been easier.
I could abort my baby in any of the 50 states.
Abortion-free state.
Excellent. Well, yeah, guys, check that out, please, and go support Bradley and the work they're doing there. And then you also got a big conference coming up, so tell us about that.
We do. We're very excited about that. October 18th, one-day conference on a Friday, about 10 minutes from the DFW airport, Dallas area, equipping the saints to abolish abortion. We've got Jeff Durbin coming, along with Tom Askell with Founders Ministries. We've got Josh Bice and Virgil Walker with G3 Ministries. Phil George, pastor of a local church here. Dusty Devers, Oklahoma senator. And Brett Baggett, head of Rescue Those, Oklahoma pastor. and I'm going to be speaking as well. We're going to be talking about, what's really going on. How should pastors be leading their flocks and teaching about this? How can we be salt and light and not just under a bushel and not just thrown out, but actually engaging with the culture and standing in the gates and talking about issues about also IVF, birth control. And I'm going to be doing to talk specifically on are increments okay?
Yeah.
We all want to get from here to there and abolish abortion. Are there some things that are lawful and some things that are unlawful? Are there some things that help the cause and some things that hurt the cause? And we're going to be talking about that at the conference. So love for people to come to that.
And so you were going to give a discount to that as well, correct?
Exactly. For all of your listeners, followers of End Abortion Now, there's a promo code that right now we're getting close to October 18th, so we're in the late bird pricing, if you will. But you can get the early bird pricing.
Late bird, yeah, never done.
Late bird. The late bird can still get the worm here with the promo code EAN60. So that's EAN60 to get the early bird pricing for all your listeners.
Excellent. Yeah, man, I'm excited for that. I wish I could be there, but
it's going to be great. I just think the work that you're doing, man, alongside us and other like-minded organizations is just so important right now. Like, I look at that docu-series and, we've blown the trumpet on this so many times, just like the effect that this has had on the broader cultural conversation of understanding that this hasn't gone anywhere. It's just been made more accessible, more affordable, more anonymous for people to obtain. And it's actually put us in a really challenging position at the state level with these ballot measures too.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it from a standpoint of responsibility, the Supreme Court, as you've said before, Bradley, they kind of wash their hands of the responsibility of these children. And then we have, our highest leaders who are washing their hands and saying, give it to the states. And then you have the church, by and large, saying, no, we're going to wash our hands and not defend the fatherless. And then you have mothers and fathers at the street level who are saying, no, we're not going to take responsibility for our children. We're going to wash our hands of that. And then you have the state at an individual level rising up and saying, well, let's let the people decide. Let's just put it up to a vote and let everybody go their own way on this and violate the Constitution and the law of God and all the rest. And it just seems like the problem is that nobody wants to take responsibility for these children.
Exactly right. Yeah, even we're fighting with everything we got right now, a ballot initiative here in Arizona that I've heard, if passed, is going to be like the worst of all of them. That's what I've been reading. And it's, we got billboards up, we're putting signs up, we're doing everything we can, but the sign that we keep seeing around, it's from the pro-life movement, the pro-life industry in Arizona.
It goes too far.
It goes too far, yeah.
So they were involved with a lot of the group in Ohio where they had the recent amendment, and that same strategy failed. This idea of, protect women. This is an issue of women's health care and all the rest, that morally ambiguous language, which confuses people and I think really led to the outcome that you saw in Ohio by and large.
Yeah, so the issue is not that it's murder. This goes a little too far. Don't you guys think it's a little
too extreme? Yeah, too extreme. Late-term abortions, too extreme.
It's crazy. So, yeah, that's what we're up against. Well, real quick, before we get into the debate, Bradley, I know we've had you on this to talk about this specifically before the ballot initiatives, but as a constitutional lawyer, can you just explain to our listeners, maybe they're not up to date on these, how these work? And it's my understanding these actually, they're trying to undermine the democratic process in our nation. And so can you just explain briefly what we're up against and what these are going to do?
Yeah, so these ballot initiatives are, instituted by or initiated by citizens, right, of the state, that if they get enough signatures, then they can get a question on the ballot to put something into the state's law or into the state's constitution and really override the whole Republican form of government. The U.S. Constitution says that every state must guarantee a Republican form of government, but these ballot initiatives in the states that allow them got to short circuit all that and say, you know what, hey, let's just have majority rule. What is it, 3 wolves voting on whether to eat the 2 lambs kind of thing, and it's just a total majority rule. Everyone does what's right in their own eyes, kind of a situation. Not bound by. We're going to amend the Constitution, and again, a lot of it is, they're hoping low information voters come out and support this stuff and don't really know what's going on, and that they try to confuse the people who actually do know what's going on and or should, and they can't figure out, and they stay home. So these are just things that most of these say that there's a fundamental right to an abortion, and they say, it's a fundamental right to abortion up to viability, but then they say, and then after that, abortion is a right in the case of health, and then health is totally undefined.
Mental health, not just physical.
Right. And so it's it's abortion up to 9 months, because if you get a chiropractor to say, being pregnant is going to make your back hurt a little bit, then health, I can get an abortion because of that. So a lot of them are saying, this is only for viability, which is already evil and horrific.
Sure.
But they're actually, the way they're worded, it would actually allow abortions all the way up to 9 months. So these are horrible.
Can I ask a quick question about that? The process of the citizen-led initiatives. I mean, we have our form of government for a reason, the rule of law, the process by which we can change laws. From a legal perspective, a constitutional perspective, is this a legitimate way to change a law? Is this ever morally acceptable to put an issue like this up to a popular vote? I feel like as a Christian, I would look at it and say, well, we would need to have a nation full of moral people, and we don't. And so, God help us for entrusting something like this to the people who more oftentimes want evil than not. But even in a state like ours, I'm not convinced that the majority of Arizonans want this. I think this is funded externally.
Yeah.
It's the result of infrastructure and money coming from outside in to influence and, as you said, confuse voters and deceive people and mislead them into doing this. But that's my question is this ever legitimate to change the law like this from a constitutional perspective?
I don't think so. I think it violates the Constitution. Like I said, Republican form of government guarantee, because this is Republican form of government is you elect people who then represent people, and then they can then pass laws and things like that. Right. This completely bypasses that. This is a pure democracy form of government. And I think it's unconstitutional, and it's certainly unconstitutional in this instance because the 14th Amendment says no state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws.
Perfect.
And now we have states like Ohio and your state and lots of other states around the country right now deciding, well, do we want to deny equal protection or not? And not only does that violate God's law, but it violates the U.S. Constitution. So really, these should even be allowed to vote on this because they violate the supreme law of the land, the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, they're just seizing that opportunity to do it and circumventing the process that we love.
This is what the Supreme Court, this is the problem with Dobbs. The Dobbs case said, we're turning this back. And what's interesting, though, is that the Supreme Court actually said we're returning this to the people's representatives. So it actually, even the Dobbs case, you could argue, wait, even the Dobbs case doesn't allow for this. But it was basically the Supreme Court saying, hey, we're out of it. And in this case, it was the Supreme Court, like you said, washing their hands, just saying, all right, y'all figure this out. And, even though the Constitution screams that states must provide equal protection, the Supreme Court just totally ignored that.
Yeah. So that was something in the debate. I'll hold off getting into that too deep yet because that was something Trump talked about. I want to make sure we discuss. So in regards to these amendments, so I know when you had you on before, when this one first popped up in Ohio, I think you had said that what's going to result from this is years of litigation and going through all the layers of courts. And so from your perspective, do you see, so just say Ohio, for example, because it's already been passed or voted in Ohio. like you see it going to making its way up to the Supreme Court and then them eventually having to make a ruling on whether or not it's constitutional?
I think at some point, I think that's where it'll get to. I think right now the Supreme Court doesn't really have the stomach to rule on equal protection.
Yeah.
And so I think even though the new Ohio constitutional amendment violates the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, I think the federal courts are just going to let it for now. And because it's, they've just kind of returned it to the states, as Trump has said, and they're not going to step in.
You think they're afraid? You think they're afraid? Like they're afraid of the mob?
I don't know if they're afraid of the mob like personally. I think there's some courageous people on the court in that sense. I don't know that I'd say they're like afraid personally, but I think that they're afraid of the mob, that the mob could just tear the country apart. And completely, just undermine the republic, so to speak, just by if the court goes too far, then you could have some real problems.
That's scary.
I think that's what they're afraid of.
Sure.
I think they want to, and especially Roberts. He wants to maintain the institution of the court and the court's reputation as being this arbiter that you can trust, like this godlike organization that like they never get it wrong.
Yeah.
And so I don't think they want to go too far because that would undermine that.
Gotcha. So and forgive me because I'm actually ignorant on this. So in Ohio right now, like it got voted in, or say it were to get voted in Arizona, does that mean that abortion up to birth is immediately happening, or is it one of these things where, again, stuff's being held up in courts?
You got to see how it shakes out.
Yeah. So I actually don't know the answer to that.
I mean, essentially, it does mean that abortion till birth is immediately okay.
Yeah.
That the laws that restrict abortion, definitely before viability, are probably unenforceable, and then after viability, there's probably going to be litigation on those. But I think the way it's worded, it's going to be pretty much a free for all.
So how is that going to affect the bills that we're putting in? So like Jeff actually, he's going to be back in Ohio, and he was just there. We're going to have a bill in Ohio. So like how is that going to affect our bills then?
Yeah, that's one of the things people are saying, right? Is this will not leave this open to legal challenge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and what I say is, from a true legal perspective, nothing has changed, right? The 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution still trumps this new constitutional amendment in Ohio, and it would anywhere else that it passes it. And so states still should pass equal protection bills because they're still constitutional and they're still what you should be doing at the state level. And then once the legislature passes them, okay, now we're on to litigation about that. But absolutely, it's still the right thing to do, and that's what we should do. And we need to treat these constitutional amendments like they're not worth the paper they're written on.
Because they're not.
Well,
okay,
I mean,
makes sense.
It's just mind-boggling to me. If the fundamental role of government is to protect its citizens, right, the people under its care, and literally in the language of the constitutional amendment says the government or the state may not interfere in a violent crime of homicide.
Right.
It's commanding the state to stand down and to not prevent literal murder. So,
it's interesting. Genesis 9, you have God. He's giving civil authority to man here, Noah and his family, and he says, "Whoever sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For the image of God made he man." And then the next thing God says is, "Be fruitful and multiply." Like God, when He's saying protect innocent life, provide justice for murder, and then the next thought that God has is about the conception of children, right? He's thinking of it in the same thought, and now here we are with these amendments saying we are not going to protect the life that God holds precious and it's the most vulnerable and innocent, and we're going to reach in and we're going to say, government, you can't stop us from reaching in and destroying this life in the place that is so sacred.
Yeah,
it's so funny because all of these are touted as this should be between a woman and her doctor. The state shouldn't be involved, and they're all a fundamental attack on the role of the state.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's infuriating. Well, that's a good place to transition us here. I'm gonna. Sorry, I needed to reset this. We'll just get right into the debate because a lot of the stuff we're saying is like brought up in the debate. And we're kind of like touching it, but I want to kind of get to it. So before I start this, I do want to say I told Brad I would say this. We do want to make a disclaimer that this is not a. We're not telling you to or not to vote for Trump. We're going to call out things that need to be called out. This is all about the truth. So if I say go vote for Trump, I'm going to have people mad at me. If I say don't go vote for Trump, I'm going to have people mad at me. We're just going to speak the truth to you. That's what this is about. And Trump needs to be called out on stuff. Obviously, Harris is a hot piece of work, but we'll get into that as well. But we're all about the truth here. And so I just want to make that disclaimer before we get into this. You vote your conscience. That's what I'm going to tell you. Okay, so we'll just get right into this. This was at about the almost 16-minute mark when the abortion question came. I think it was like the second question, if I remember correctly. It came up very early. So we'll just get into this. And then, by the way, could you hear this, Brad? When I played the commercial, could you hear it?
I could hear all the voices.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. I just want to make sure you're able to hear it, so you know where we're at. So we'll get right into this, and then if you want to stop, just say something and I'll stop it.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important.
Okay, hold on. There's so much there. I don't want to get too far ahead. So one, if you missed it, they cornered him in some warehouse or something to ask him about the ballot initiative in Florida. He didn't directly answer it. That's one thing.
He said there needed to be more time.
Yeah. One thing about this debate, if you watched it, they're really, both of them are really good at not actually answering questions.
Yes.
So that's what happened. He kind of got pinned on it, but didn't really answer it. But he was like, "Oh, that's not enough time." Blah blah blah.
And so there was a ton of backlash.
A lot of backlash
from prominent pro-life figures.
And then very quickly came out and said, "Oh no, I'm not going to vote for this." You know. So what he's saying is right though, that the extreme leftists they want this. They want to be able to murder their children even after birth if they decide,
And by the way, that does really happen. It's not a myth. Late-term abortion is not a myth. And to his credit, even in states like Minnesota, where Tim Walz was the governor, it happened also. Yeah,
so he's right about that. He's absolutely right. And, of course, Harris just trying to laugh it off like he's full of it. But he's absolutely correct on that. On that point, you want to say anything, Brad? And then obviously we'll get to the exception stuff. But
well, I mean, look at the world that we live in, where he says that, oh yeah, you should be able to murder a baby because of the sins of his father, because of the way the baby was conceived. You should be able to murder a baby, like he said, 6 weeks is not enough time. You should be able to murder a baby a little beyond 6 weeks. We don't know how long he thinks is okay, but beyond 6 weeks, which is that's when a lot of abortions are happening. We need to be able to murder babies like that. And he calls the Democrats' position radical because you can murder them up to 9 months. It's like saying, it's murdering a 10-year-old. You radicals, only murder 1-year-olds. It's like wait. I think you're all radicals.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think you're all extremists, and anyone who doesn't think that needs to check ourselves and wash ourselves in the water of God's word and say, like, man, the fact that our natural reaction to that is, those radical Democrats, and that certainly it is, but we should also be saying, wow, this radical National Republican Party and National Republican candidate that we have is radical, in wanting people to be able to murder children at all, but even beyond 6 weeks. And we're living in pretty bad place.
I struggle to contextualize that we have anything more here than two pro-abortion candidates.
Sure.
I mean,
that's exactly
one
degrees.
One may be more vociferous and upfront about their intentions, but what you just heard articulated there was exactly another problem. Murder up to this arbitrarily designated point is perfectly fine, and then I feel like the question is a legitimate one because everything he has said on this has been muddy.
Yeah.
And he has been populist in his framing, and which is how some of it is supposed to work. We're supposed to be vocal about the fact that life begins at fertilization and all life needs to be protected. And then he responds to that in some manner and says, no, I've got to keep this part of my base, right? Which, to your point, is more about the pandering, to the people in the middle and those of us that do maintain a strong stance for life. So there's just a ton of inconsistency, and I think his positions force him into a schizophrenic standpoint. Like he's trying to hold so much together, but there's no standard at the bottom of it. This is either murder or it isn't.
Right.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
And this is something no one should be surprised by this. And then people, whenever he said, that, hey, there needs to be more time, and it at least implied that he would be voting, for the Florida amendment, there's huge reaction to that. Finally, by Christians and the pro-life movement. And, the issue is in 2022, he said after the midterms didn't go nearly as well as Republicans thought they would, he came out and said at that point, hey, we're too strong on abortion. We need to water it down. That's why we lost. We've got to win elections. We need to compromise on this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody knew where he was on this issue.
Sure.
And what he was going to be doing in this election. And so that's when, people should have reacted and said, absolutely not. No way are we watering down on this. This is why we have a government in the first place. This is why we have a country, and the nation and the republic in the first place is to protect. If it's not to protect innocent life, then what are we all here for? But they didn't, and he kind of got away with that. People were like, yeah, you're right. We gotta compromise to win elections. And I think one of the reasons that people did react, to what he said recently is because he's doing well, and they think, okay, he may actually win. We have a chance of winning this, so we can push back a little, and maybe he'll still win. Whereas back then, I think they were like, you know what, we probably do need to at least be quiet and let him get away with this. And that's what's happening.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
Yeah, so
I put a lot of this on the fault of Christians that
for sure
that we've allowed this. We've allowed him to get away.
It's been a lot of compromises up to this point.
With talking like this without us pushing back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he said right there, he's all for exceptions. And then I don't even, the statistic that 85% of Republicans, I mean, I don't know if that's accurate or not. But
I'd like to know where he's getting that number.
Yeah, but I mean, it's affected us directly in Arizona here. We had this year what they overturned the law.
That's the thing is it's having a discipling effect on all these other conservative, even Christian organizations. Like, let's kind of not focus on this. Like, let's not highlight the fact that this position is so utterly compromised and abominable, because if we do, that's going to prevent us from winning.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So let's move on.
Well, and just speaking of there in Arizona, whenever the the court said, oh, you can enforce the pre-Roe ban there, Trump came out, even though Trump's been like, hey, leave it to the states. He came actually out and said, oh no, that goes too far, that's too extreme, even though it's still allowed self-managed abortion moms to order pills and do it. It's like, no, that's too extreme. And then that provided cover to, what was it, 2 Republican legislators
2 or 3
that voted to repeal that.
Yep.
And
Carrie Lake. Carrie
Lake
came out.
Him being weak on that doesn't just affect things at the federal level; it affects it at the state level too.
Yep, you're exactly right. Okay, keep going.
But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Okay.
Don't you love how they jump in there and just throw those shots in?
Yeah, they fact checked Trump the entire thing, which was just
so anyways, come on, look, Mr.
So this is the conversation I was alluding to. So I want to hear your take on this, Brad, because on one hand, right, our nation is a constitutional republic, right, and the different things should go to the states, right, to vote in each individual state. That's how our nation was established. However, when it comes to this specific conversation, right, because we're dealing with, like you mentioned, the 14th Amendment and the right to life, right? So I just want to hear your response to what Trump's saying, and even how the Supreme Court then in Dobbs, how they could have been courageous, and but they instead kind of passed the buck to the states. So I just want to hear your take on that conversation.
Yeah, should we just let states vote to decide whether to have slavery or not?
Yeah.
Right.
Which is why the 14th Amendment is a thing, right?
Right.
I mean, at one time we didn't have a 14th Amendment, and we did let states decide stuff like that.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's fine. Really, I think that before the 14th Amendment was fine. The problem was states abused that, and they we saw the judgment of God, the Civil War, and then we saw the 14th Amendment saying, okay, we need to take this out of the power of the states on this issue of equal protection of the laws. At the very least, laws about life, liberty, and property. That's now taken. The 14th Amendment took that out of the sole jurisdiction of the states and said, hey, or states, it's your jurisdiction, but it has to be equal protection. You have to provide equal protection, and that's why, states, you can't have slavery, and you can't say, well, this law protects people who are this skin color but not this skin color. You can't do that anymore. No more of that after the Civil War, after the passage of the 14th Amendment. And so what Trump is basically saying, if we just apply the issue to slavery, he's like, actually, let's go back. Let's go back and let's just let the states decide slavery. Let's just let the states decide, whether people get discriminated against in our laws, based upon whether they've been born yet or not, or what have you. That's why kind of in this debate, if you kind of compare this to slavery, right now we are back in 1750, where no state has abolished abortion, and every state's just deciding whatever it wants to do, and we're seeing a lot of states decide, and really every state at this point deciding we need to have at least some abortions, right? We need to let some people murder babies, or let everyone murder babies up to a certain point, and that's where we are. And that's not, I mean, it's just going to cry out more for the judgment of God, because of this child sacrifice. So
yeah, no, I appreciate that.
We
That's an excellent way to describe it, because I mean, ultimately, like we're saying, the state should have, the ability to make their own laws, as long as they don't, trump the, and I'm not saying that name facetiously, the U.S. Constitution. So we're saying at this point it would override the U.S. Constitution because it's not providing equal protection for all life.
And I'm all for states' rights. I mean, I'm a big states' rights guy.
Yeah.
But this is how you lose states' rights.
Exactly.
By it's kind of one of those, you'll either be governed by God, or by God you will be governed. And
ooh, I like that.
And it's whenever you're not being governed by God and you're abusing that, then you're going to see tyranny. And that's what we saw, with Roe, and that's, we're headed to more judgment.
Sure.
That's interesting, the connection between absolute autonomy and tyranny, right? Because that absolute autonomy often descends into anarchy, into lawlessness, and that lawlessness then needs to be reined in by a power stronger than itself. And if that won't be God and his word and his law and a higher law that we can point to that transcends us, it will be the strong arm of whoever has the bigger gun in the end.
Yep.
So forgive me, what was the fact check she just dropped right before I stopped, and I completely forgot what it was?
She said that doesn't happen. Babies born alive from botched abortions and then left to die.
I'm going to fact check her on that one.
Yeah. Which, if I'm not mistaken, Kamala Harris voted in opposition to that, and we'd probably say that was more of a ceremonial law by the pro-life establishment, kind of a throwaway, like, oh, please just give us the crumbs of at least save the babies that are born alive from the botched abortions, like at least do that. But the fact that we have a presidential candidate that is so wicked to go against even rescuing life that has exited the womb and now needs help to survive, just saying we're going to leave that child to die. I mean, I don't think you can fully express the level of depravity.
Yep.
Well, and after that, the fact checkers fact-checked the fact-checkers here afterwards, and they saw that, in Tim Walz's own state, I think last year there were eight reported born alive and then left to die.
Yep, exactly. All right, so here we're going to get into, you thought Trump was extreme.
Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended.
He gets credit for that.
And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life.
Murder, not health care.
Abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
And
I know.
I think the most no, on a very real note, I think the most
cognitive dissonance.
I think the most concerning thing here is how passionate she is about this.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
and that's why this election honestly is coming down to this issue, I think.
I mean, because if you listen to her speak on the other topics that were addressed here, on no other topic, I think, does she speak so passionately. Like, this is a woman that is so in love with abortion as a sacrament of religious worship that it must be protected at all costs. Whatever we have to do to protect the murder of innocent children, that's what we're going to do. And I believe that she believes it.
Yeah.
I believe that a human being, a human heart, could be so self-deceived as to create such a level of cognitive dissonance, as I'm sure you're going to touch in a second, Bradley, because of the moral, spiritual problem of rebellion against God, that you could actually try and maintain in your mind two simultaneous things, like, we need to protect innocent people's bodies from being violated.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, we're going to violate the bodily autonomy of this innocent human being by completely destroying them.
And calling it moral. Calling it morally
and
good.
Even to the point of her commenting, well, you don't need to relinquish your faith commitments in order to support this. So now she's bringing the religion, which, by the way, this is interesting. That was the only comment about religion or God in the entire debate.
Yeah,
was her invoking the word faith.
You're right.
A faith commitment. You don't have to relinquish your faith commitment to be for abortion, the murder of children.
Yeah, this is literally Romans chapter 1. I mean, she's literally flipping morality on its head, doing the 180. So, Brad, I'm dying to hear, because Brad about came out of his seat. You couldn't see it, but I could see it.
I mean, Zach just covered it. I mean, it's just like she's just, wait a second, what you just said, violating the, bodies of innocent people. Wait, I mean, that's what abortion is. What are you, and that just comes down to this whole, the hands of the wicked are swift to shed blood.
Oof.
And it's that, we've got to be able to do this. Mom's rights trumps baby's rights, and yes, no one should have the right to tell a mother, because she's a voter, what she can do with her body. Oh, but these babies, who the Bible calls the fatherless, and people, historically oppress them, and God points that out over and over and over again, because guess what? There's no one to stand for them because they don't have a vote. She's just fine with people oppressing them and destroying, violating their bodies, even though they're innocent. It's a total might makes right argument here.
Yeah. Yeah,
which is consistent with Marxism, communism.
Exactly.
I have more people with me, and we have more power than you do.
Yeah.
So you're going to do what we say.
Yeah, I mean, just this whole, how dare you tell a woman what she can do with her body?
Right.
And I'm saying, how dare you not allow this baby to have the right to decide what to do with their own body? So we'll just do a couple more minutes of this, and then I know Brad's got to get going not too long from now, so we'll try to do what we can here.
Does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that.
When did that happen?
Yep. Okay, Brad, go take it. Run.
Where was that one? When did that happen?
Right.
Not happening. Fake news.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, this was one of the big criticisms from the pro-life industry.
Exactly.
They came out against us in Louisiana.
Yeah, you're going to criminalize women that get miscarriages.
That's when I first heard that argument was against us from the pro-life movement, and now they've stolen that.
Or ectopic pregnancies.
Oh, it's crazy.
Right. So just to say one thing about that is all of these things already have provisions within our current existing law that protects physicians in these situations that are medical triage, in which, he's trying to treat the woman and the baby and preserve as much life as possible.
Yeah.
And he is not held liable for trying to save as much life as he can, right? He's not penalized for helping a woman, for example, who has miscarried. That's not an abortion, right? Abortion is the intentional destruction of a living human being. Yeah. Miscarriage is something different altogether. Obviously, in a fallen world, the lines are not as clear often as we would like them to be. But that's why the law, to the best of our ability, doesn't penalize doctors for upholding the oath that they took to do no harm.
Exactly right. Okay.
A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term? They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade. As President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President.
You know, not to start a fight here, but I think this is the exact moment of the debate that Taylor Swift was sitting at home with her cat saying, I'm going to make an Instagram post saying I endorse Kamala Harris now. She's my candidate.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this election, it comes down to this conversation, and I think that's why the Republicans have tried so hard to ignore it or sweep it under the rug or not speak boldly on it. But, I mean, that's just a monitor? Like, what? It's like, what are you talking about?
That's unconstitutional.
Yeah,
you can't have a what? No. Again, something else. Something else. You know, Bob, can I take? You know, or Alex, can I take? You know,
things that never happened for 500.
Never happen or never happen for 1,000, please.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I said Bob. I'm mixing up my prices.
Well, and then
Alex.
We'll end it there because I know Brad's got to get going here soon. When we can carry this into the after show, but I think this is where Trump's like, he goes, because he said he's going to sign an abortion ban. He goes, well, we don't even have to have this conversation because it ain't going to happen because it'll never pass and get on my desk, which he's right, which is sad. It's really sad. That's where we're at, but he's right about that. But of course, he doesn't answer the question because he's an expert at avoiding answering questions. But anyways, we'll end on that point. Do you want to add anything to that?
Just the comment about forcing women to carry a pregnancy against their will and all of this. It's just euphemistic pro-abortion language for, they want to be able to kill the baby.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Right? First of all, abortion is more often than not an intentional decision made between two parties in which they conduct an act that tends toward sexual reproduction, right? You live in God's world, you do this, and babies happen. Like, that's how God made the world.
Yeah.
So no one is forcing anyone to carry a pregnancy against their will. And in the event of the unthinkable happens and a woman is violated, she doesn't then, as the victim of a violent crime, turn around and become the perpetrator of another one.
Bingo.
Against an innocent human being.
Bingo.
Like, the baby is not forced to bear the weight of his father's sin and crime for simply existing.
Exactly right. Brad, any closing thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we need to be taking these rapists out. You know, that's the solution here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so that way we have a lot fewer of those situations because we execute them and not these precious innocent babies.
Bingo. Excellent. One more time, Brad, where can people find you?
FAA.life. They can go there, check out Foundation to Abolish Abortion, sign up for the EquipCon, Equipping the Saints to Abolish Abortion Conference. Use the promo code EAN60, EAN60 to get the early bird price there, and check out abortionfree.com and watch the docu-series.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, everyone. And of course, I also want to mention Amtac Blades. We got our sweet battle axes laying out there. Bill Rapier, good brother of ours, retired Navy SEAL, Dev Crew operator, beast in every use of the term. Amazing man of God. Anyways, go to amtechblades.com. You can put Apologia in the coupon code and get 5% off your order. And he will then give 5% also to End Abortion Now. So he's in this fight with us to save these babies. And of course, we got all of our gear. Speaking of babies, I mentioned this our last show where we got our End Abortion Now track now in Spanish. Oh, that's not the Spanish one. This is the Spanish one. Tu bebe. So you can check that out. We're excited to have those. And I'm wearing my sweet new Provoke shirt today.
Nice. I was just on Provoke last night.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
I
it's
know
a good
those
time.
guys. They're all right. Just kidding. Love those guys. Well, thank you, everyone, for partnering with us. We are going to head right into an after show, so we'll get right over there because Brad's got to go in 13 minutes. So we'll get over there. We'll continue this conversation. Thank you, everyone that supports us and partners with us with All Access. And I think that's about all. I think Jeff will be on next week.
Later, dudes. Thanks for joining us.
So thank you, everyone. We love you. Appreciate you. Peace out.